Hi guys, so today is Tuesday, a little bit of a random day to be starting a reading vlog, but I figured this particular one is going to go over maybe roughly 2 weeks almost. So filling you in on what I picked up last week that is still carrying over, I had started the book Malice by John Gwynne. I'm not that far into it, I'm only a little over 100 pages, and I was hoping to finish it over the weekend, but I didn't feel very good over the weekend. So I kind of just didn't do much of anything, and I hate when I do that. I mean, I feel like I kind of needed to rest a little because I didn't feel great, but at the same time, it just makes me feel so behind. This is the problem when you overschedule yourself. Okay, let me clarify. Not overschedule yourself like, I'm just so busy. Oh my gosh, because I've experienced being so busy. At one time in my life, I had 5 different part-time jobs while going to school full-time and having an internship. So I don't mean overscheduled in that way. I mean when I write down, like, this is what I'm going to do on this day. This is what I'm going to do on this day. And I'm going to finish this book by this day. So now that's all totally out the window. Anyway, about Malice. So I mentioned before that at the beginning, it feels like we're getting a lot of scenes and we're seeing these things transpire with a lot of different characters. We're being introduced to a lot of people, which I'm not opposed to. It just makes for a slower start and not necessarily the strongest emotional connection right from the get-go, which is fine. I'm totally okay with giving this book a little bit of time, but it is going to take some time, I think. I just don't want to rush through it. I have listened a little bit to the audiobook, and I feel like it's one of those stories where I just can't do other things while listening to the audiobook. So some books that are much easier to get into, that there aren't as many characters, maybe the world's not as big, you can fold your laundry or do chores around the house, something like that. Doesn't require a lot of brain work. But this one, I feel like I gotta pay attention to every single little detail, so it's gonna take me probably longer than I was originally intending. Totally okay with that, but apologies that I'm not done yet. I'm also going to be starting The Color of Law. I'm going to be buddy reading this with Joshana and Jess Owens. There's a lot of different Jessies and Jesses on BookTube, but Jess Owens. And this is one that my husband read last year. He last year got on a nonfiction kick, and then he is kind of filtering through to me like, hey, pick this one up. Hey, pick this one up. So I recently read Evicted, also with Jess Owens, and it's a very eye-opening book. I highly encourage a lot of people to pick it up because I think there's a lot of misconceptions or a lack of knowledge involving those sorts of things, landlords, tenants, how, just in general, it's a book that I think a lot of people should read. It's written in a way, it's like watching a documentary, the way it's written. It's so well researched, so well documented, but that one is much more personal. The Color of Law has to do with policies that have been put in place throughout America's history that have, whether intentionally or not, contributed to segregation, the divide. If you are not living in America, you probably know that we have some issues involving those sorts of things. So this is a book that I think whenever people talk about certain things involving how it's been implemented, not just through people, not just personal dislike or hatred or just not knowing. Beyond that, it's actual things that have happened and been put into law, been put into practice that have affected people in a very negative way. So that's the idea for this book. And my husband was just flabbergasted at so many of the things that he learned through this. So I'm hoping to also learn quite a bit. Last, I'm hoping to pick up this one, The Death of Vivek Ochi. It says the little quick blurb at the top before the full synopsis. What does it mean for a family to lose a child they never really knew? It's a little bit shorter, but I have been trying to branch out and not just read fantasy. I'm trying to read more nonfiction and then also just things that are still fiction, but not fantasy. That's my plans. Those are my reading plans for the next 2 weeks. I mean, come on. Is that not the cutest thing? Little sleepy bear. I love you, Luna. I love you. Okay, I'll leave you alone. Hey guys, so today is Monday. It's quite a bit later than the last time that I checked in. And we had a really busy weekend. I mentioned in a community tab post that I'd had a really busy weekend and also that Luna Bear gave us a little bit of a scare. So I thought I'd give you some info about that as well as some updates on my reading. Luna Bear is currently, I can hear her little claws on the floor over there. But I'll start with the Luna stuff. So still kind of keeping an eye on her. She wasn't really eating, and that's not normal for her. She loves her food. And she just kind of randomly wasn't eating, and she's kind of a lazy-ish dog anyway. She kind of just likes to lay around where you are, and if you go to the other room, she'll follow you, and then she'll lay down to that room, which always makes me feel bad when I'm only in a room for a second and I'm like, I'm sorry, Luna, I didn't mean for you to get up. Anyway, she's already a little bit lazy in that regard, but she just seemed more lethargic than normal, and we were just concerned because the not eating, we were just worried, right? So we took her to the vet. Her blood work was all fine. Everything looked okay. And she ended up kind of having an explosive situation at the vet. So they were thinking that maybe she just ate something that didn't agree with her. And they gave us some food to give to her to have her kind of hopefully get back to normal. But she's still not totally back to normal. She's still a little hesitant with her food. And I'm hoping it's just that whatever is in her system is kind of still taking its time to totally leave her. Maybe she just almost like how people get the stomach flu and then they have kind of a love-hate relationship with food for a bit. I'm hoping that's all that's going on, but if she continues to not do this, I feel like I'm gonna have to take her back to the vet. But that's the update with Luna Bear. Another thing going on is I'm not gonna go too in depth with it just because it's personal stuff, but there's still, I feel like if you've never lost a loved one, then you don't really realize how much there is to do after a loved one passes away. But there's still some stuff to get done with that involves, like the local government. And so you just kind of have to keep getting that stuff done. And it's not a big deal, but it's a little emotionally draining because you have to find this balance. If you don't know, I lost my dad last year, if you're new here. But you kind of have to find this balance of you want to preserve their memory, you want to still have them with you in your heart, but at the same time, you don't want to get stuck in this depressed state. So you're kind of constantly battling, like, am I moving on too fast? Am I not taking enough time? And I struggle with that. And I especially struggle with just expressing my deeper emotions outwardly. So I usually like to wait till I'm all by myself. But what ends up happening a lot of times for me is I start to just kind of get through the day, and then all of those thoughts finally surface when I lay down to sleep. So my sleep schedule's all messed up, and it's been messed up for a while. So anyway, it's not a big deal, but just there's stuff to do with that. And one thing that came up this weekend is that we have something called uncontained trash. I don't know if you guys have this where you live, but basically if you have things to have thrown out that maybe don't fit in your trash cans or something, then you put them out on the curb and then they will come pick them up. And we had a fair amount of things to move. So when my father was not doing well last year, I moved in to become his caretaker, and it was kind of this like very quick, we moved in with Dad to try to help him. And so it was kind of a mix of like some of our furniture and some of his furniture and too much furniture for one house sort of thing. And so we've kind of slowly been, donating a lot of stuff, and we did that a little bit this weekend. We donated the things that were in good condition, but a lot of other things, like he had the couch that he died on that I'm like, well, I don't want to donate that. That seems strange. And so we wanted to get rid of that, but then, you can't like fit that in the trash can. So it was like we had to wait for uncontained trash. And there's just a few other things that are they weren't in great shape that I feel like wouldn't have been great to donate that we put outside. He had this old couch that it got like super ripped up, and he would just put it in the screened-in room. And then he had this futon that my sister and I, one of us would sleep on the futon, and usually one of us slept on the couch until he built us our own rooms because he was a great dad, like way above and beyond a great dad. But so he had this futon that usually I slept on, that he eventually just put out in the backyard, and it was not an outdoor piece of furniture, so it was just dirty and gross. And Luna Bear has brought some stuff up onto the couch that she shouldn't have that made it smelly. So we had to move that too. And so it's just a lot of like moving this weekend, which I know is kind of dumb, but it also, again, it's just like a little emotionally draining to like go through these things. And anyway, so it was more than just that. It was a lot of other things around the house too. But again, it's just kind of a process, and hopefully in talking about this process, it helps anybody feel less alone who's also gone through it. Or if you've never gone through it, maybe you'll remember this and be like, oh, like that's okay, so like this is normal to feel this way. Or okay, you have an idea that it's going to take a little bit longer than maybe you anticipated. But anywho, the highlight of the weekend was that one of my friends from high school had wanted to hang out. So on Sunday night, we got to hang out with some friends. We are all fully vaccinated, so there was no nervousness as far as meeting up with some people. So that was really fun. And I'm just really grateful because it's a really good friend who I feel like has been so understanding of my very bad social skills for the past year. I've been really bad at getting back to people. I just get in these mindsets where I'm not a very social person. I'm not good at being social. And it's so nice to have friends that don't really hold that against you. Like they don't take it personally if you don't get back to a text or something, especially with everything that was going on in my life. It's just great to have friends that are understanding of that. And it was so lovely to get to see them. Hello to you guys if you end up watching this video. I'm almost embarrassed. I hope you don't. Anywho, getting to what I've been reading, I'm about a third of the way through The Color of Law. It's about as depressing as I was expecting. It's also just back to back to back to back facts. These are things that happen. Here's at this date this happened, and on this date this happened, and on this date this person said this. And the whole purpose of the book is to show how America's zoning laws and other types of laws have affected segregation. And I'm very appreciative of all the work that has been poured into this book, because I think it's important to have these facts when you are considering certain conversations and just having a better understanding of the past, because we can only know our own experiences, we can only know the time in which we live and what we've been taught in school about the past. And I feel like you kind of have to keep going. Otherwise, you have a very limited view, and there's so much to learn. And so I'm really grateful for this book, but also I'm frustrated by it. So I took a break from it, and I picked up The Death of Vivek Oji, which was not necessarily a pick-me-up kind of book. I don't know that I can talk about this book very well without going into spoilers. It is, I think, touching on so many very important things, and especially the harmful ways in which a society can be so... The way that if a society is very close-minded, how it can so negatively affect a person's mental health, and how somebody whose mental health is being negatively affected can affect them physically. It can just drain them so much. There's so many things that I think are very important. It also is not based in Western society. It's actually in Nigeria. And so it kind of is showing a different side of the conversation, because we usually see things through the lens of Americans or the Western world, if you will. So I appreciate that as well. But there are also some things that I'm going to say mild spoilers right now. If you look up reviews, you will see a lot of this mentioned as well. But while I'm not going to give away certain important details, I still think I want to give you guys a spoiler warning, just in case you really want to go into this without knowing much. But there is incest in this, and I think that is a very... I think that topic is not something people always want to read about. And there's also, I think, there's some stereotypes about certain groups of people that are LGBTQ that I think this book is making an effort to show that these people are people and they're just as flawed as anybody else. But because of some of the harmful stereotypes about LGBTQ people, this book, in showing certain things, I think it might be difficult for some people to read, or they might even find it offensive. And I'm not trying to claim objective, like this is offensive or anything like that. I just think that this is a very difficult book for a number of reasons. So I guess go into it knowing that. For me, I think I would have preferred the book to be longer and to have gone deeper into certain things because I feel like it's pretty short and we kind of got sort of surface level. It's only like 250-ish pages. So I think I would have liked more time. I also think the main person that the story is centered around, I would have liked to have seen them more and understood their perspective and their experiences a little bit more. And I think, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, the reason that incest was used in the story was because it's something that often, you know, people who are trying to discover things about themselves, they often realistically discover these things based off of their feelings toward people who are close to them. However, there are other individuals in the book that are not related to them who are more accepting and who are helping them in just being kind to them and letting them be who they are. And those people aren't always relatives. And so I think we could have maybe not had the incest in there. It's a difficult book to talk about because it does touch on so many things that I think are very important. But I think there are just certain things that I would have preferred done a little differently. And like I said, I think at the core of it, for a story about a person who feels so lost and feels like they won't be accepted and that there might even be violence facing them, as that is a thing, that is a reality for a lot of people, we really don't see a lot of that person's perspective, and I think I would have liked to have seen more of that. If you'd like to add anything else about that book, please feel free to do so in the comment section, because it is at the very least, I think, a conversation starter, and there are so many aspects of it that I think maybe I missed. So if you have things to add, I would love to see it. Anyway, though, I'm going to be jumping back into some fantasy stories, continue reading The Color of Law, and fingers crossed that Luna Bear starts to feel a little better. So a little context for this clip. I've started a whole album in my phone called Luna's Head on Things, and she took it to the next level because she's laying down and putting her head on it, and it's so cute and so silly. Hello again. It is now technically Friday because it's past midnight on Thursday. I think it's close to 1 in the morning. But I finished Malice finally. It was so funny to me to see the last vlog's comments, because when I had started this and I was only roughly 100 pages in, people's opinions about the book varied significantly. So there were some people that said it's the best fantasy series. There were other people that were saying they hated Malice. I ended up feeling right in the middle. I was not really in love with it, and I also didn't hate it. I can't remember the last time I felt this in the middle. And it's not even that I loved it except for these things brought it down, or I hated it except for there were these really exciting moments. I genuinely just, I got done with the book, and then I was like, I'm glad I finished it, I guess. So to give a little more information about it, if you don't know anything about the story, it's kind of setting up for a classic good guy, bad guy, or at least ultimate evil, ultimate good. There's some lore and some prophecies about there being kind of a chosen one, and you get a large cast of characters, and you're kind of picking apart, okay, is this a good guy? Is this the chosen one? It's that sort of a setup. And it being multiple point of view and having as many perspectives as it did, I'm not sure exactly how many, but it was quite a few. But I was completely understanding that the beginning was going to take time, because you're only getting within that first 100 pages. You only see each character a little bit. So, of course, I'm going to need more time with the characters, and the writing style to me was very much like watching a scene play out. You really aren't in characters' heads all that much, so you're sort of just witnessing things that they are involved with, which also meant that I was going to need more time. It wasn't maybe as on the nose, but I actually think it could have benefited not from handing you the characters' personalities or overdoing them or anything like that, but sometimes the characters blended together. I think that they could have had more personality. There were a couple side characters that definitely did. And there were also certain moments where certain interactions between characters were fantastically done, but I felt like they weren't that common, and some of the interactions felt very similar. It would kind of start to get repetitive. So I kept waiting for that tipping point because I was so enjoying so many things about this. I love multiple point of view. I loved the scope. I loved the potential of where we were going in this story. And I never crossed that tipping point. So that's why I kind of ended up just being right in the middle. I got close to the end and I was thinking, if any of these main characters died, I don't know if I would care that much, which is obviously probably not what you want to feel. But I also didn't hate it. So I was looking through some other 3-star reviews and I came across one that everything that they were saying was what I was feeling, but they said they continued on and they read book 2, and as soon as they started book 2, they fell in love with the series and they gave the rest of the series 5 stars. So I'm not abandoning the series, and fingers crossed I feel the same way as that person whose review I saw. I would love to know your thoughts. If you felt like I did when you continued on with the series, did you end up feeling like this reviewer, or did you feel like you should have stopped? I'm very curious. And for those of you who really don't like the book, did you DNF it? It was just the beginning you didn't like? Did you not like the whole thing? I'm very curious because, like I said last time, it was so varied. So I would love to know more details about your thoughts with this one. But anywho, that concludes everything that I've been reading recently. I haven't read any more of The Color of Law. That one is kind of a lot of facts. And so I feel like it's not the easiest thing to consume a lot of within a single sitting. You kind of have to dip your toes in here and there. But either way, kind of a interesting reading vlog because I wasn't in love with anything. I didn't hate anything. So I don't know, maybe this is boring. But an update on Luna Bear today, as in technically yesterday, Thursday, was the first day that she has eaten her food, no problem. So I think that she's feeling better now, which is such a relief. I was a little nervous there because I'm like, little bear, please eat your food. And speaking of doggies, this isn't sponsored, and I actually mentioned one of their shirts in the past, but this company I'll have them linked down below sells really cute clothes, and a percentage of the profit goes toward animal shelters, so I'll have them linked if you're interested. I have really enjoyed all the t-shirts that I bought from them. But anyway, I hope you all are having a lovely day, a lovely week, and I'll see you guys later. Bye.